What's up, guys? It's Kit Dale here from kitdaletraining.com. I want to talk to you guys today about something that I've been getting asked a lot about. Now, I open up my videos for questions, and one thing that people have been asking a lot is, how do I prepare for a competition? Now, this is obviously subjective to the competition that I'm competing in. If I'm competing in EBI or I'm competing in IBJJF or submission only, it's going to alter the way I would train for it. Now, if you look at most competitions, let's take IBJJF for an example. They're probably the most common competition, and you're training you're competing between 6 to 10 minute rounds. And then you have like a 20-minute break in between, sometimes an hour, and then you go again, and then sometimes you might even have another day before your next fight. And that's kind of how it goes, especially if you're in black belt and you're in the finals. Now, when you're training, most people train for about an hour long, and they do competition rounds. And let's say it might be a 10-minute round with a 1-minute break. Then another 10-minute round with a 1-minute break. Then another 10-minute round with a 1-minute break. And they do that for about an hour. Now, I understand in a class format, that's probably going to get the most out of your students. The problem is you're preparing your body for more like a marathon than what a jiu-jitsu match is like, which is more like a sprint lap. Now, this is the way I would change it if I could. Now, I understand a lot of people can't do this because they won't have the resources, but you can also you can kind of alter things to represent to replace this. So what I would do is I would get maybe 5 people, and I would do a round with 2 people. Okay, it'll be a 10-minute round because that's what I'd most likely be competing in. 10-minute round, and I would get one guy for 5 minutes and then another guy for 5 minutes. And I would go, for the first 5 minutes with one guy, and then the next guy comes in for the next 5 minutes. So it makes it a little bit harder. Then I would have a 20 to 25 minute break. Then I would do another round, 10-minute round. Then another 25-minute break. Then another round. And that would be a true representation of what you're going to see in jiu-jitsu competition. And that's where most people get startled, because they've been training 10-minute rounds. They're training with a full wet gi after 5 minutes, their gi's fully wet, or their no gi's completely wet. Everyone's slippery, the mats are slippery. Then you go into a competition and everyone's dry, the gis are dry, everyone's full of energy and adrenaline, and then you get shocked and you realize, holy shit, how hard it is. It's so different to the way you've been training 90% of your training, because you've been already wet and slippery, and then suddenly you're going against someone that's dry. Half the matches in jiu-jitsu, I'm not sweating till the end of the damn thing, and then I get off of it. Yet we train in that environment all the time. I can understand why we do, but this is why I tell people I'm very much against turning the heaters up when training or closing the windows in, because I know people think that, it's good because you get mentally tough, but I think it's also going to make your rolls really fucking slippery and wet, and your gi's very wet, which is not really the way it's going to be in competition. Now, if you're not training for competition, that's fine, I understand that. But if you are training for competition, it's not going to be a true representation of what you're going to be facing out there. And the times are going to be very different. The times are going to be extremely different compared to what you think it's going to be. So it's important to understand what you're competing in, how long you're going to be competing in, how many people are going to be in that bracket, so then you know how many fights you're going to have, and prepare as well as you can for that. Now, I can understand if you don't have those kind of resources, then what I would do if I was you, I would create an environment like that through a strength and conditioning course or something like that. I would create a course that takes about 6 to 10 minutes, depending on what you're competing in. If you're doing 10-minute rounds like me, then I would do a 10-minute strength and conditioning course. Then I'd have a 20-minute break, and then I'd come back in and do it again. It'd be high intensity, and then I'd have another 20-minute break. And even the strength and conditioning itself, what I would do is it wouldn't be the exact same thing, because jiu-jitsu is not. Jiu-jitsu is a whole heap of different things. Sometimes it's high intensity, sometimes you're sitting there doing nothing. So I try and find exercises that represent that as close as I can. Now, I would much rather to get other trainers to do it the first way I said than doing the strength and conditioning substitute. But if you have to, then do it. The problem with the strength and conditioning stuff, and this is why I don't do strength and conditioning for jiu-jitsu, if I'm doing any kind of conditioning, it's just to look good. It's not to perform well, because I couldn't give a shit about that. I understand that being strong and athletic is a bonus attribute, but can also be a detriment to your progression. Now, I'll explain to you guys why. If you want to get the best out of something, for all kind of human progression, we have to be tested in a certain way. or put under a certain amount of stress. Now, it can't be too much, because too much stress, you're going to break us. Not enough stress, and we're going to be unaffected. So it's got to be a certain amount of stress. And with jiu-jitsu, this happens all the time. There'll be a certain amount of stress, someone's putting a certain amount of pressure on you. And for you to grow, you have to learn how to deal with that. Whether it becomes problem solving quicker, or learning how to maneuver, or whatever it is, you need to learn how to do that. Now, the problem with strength and conditioning or athleticism is it acts like an armor. And if you want to see how strong someone really is, or how good someone really is, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take off their armor and expose them to the elements to see how good they really are, or how strong they really are. There's an old saying, the bigger the walls, the weaker the person, the weaker the walls, the stronger the person. So it's important for you to understand that your athleticism and strength is like armor, and you can use it to get the job done. The problem is you're going to usually rely on that, because a lot of people like winning. They like looking like winners. Why? Because people like that. People are attracted to that. People praise you and you get addicted to that, and you like to win. Now, if you want to get really good at jiu-jitsu, you have to expose yourself a lot more. You have to be more vulnerable. And if you're using your strength to substitute what you lack in technique, or your true potential in technique, then you're always going to hinder your progression. So this is something I figured out at blue belt, because I was a strong blue belt, and I realized, man, I'm beating these, actually I think I was a white belt at this time, I was beating these blue belts that were smaller than me, or sometimes they're the same size, because I was using my strength. I'm like, yeah, that's really good, but if I get someone that's as strong as me or stronger, I'm fucked. So then I started trying to tailor that as much as I could. I still wanted to win the rounds, but what I would do is I would win with as little athleticism and strength as I possibly could. Obviously, if it's someone that's really good and they're beating me, then I would turn it up and try and use it. But if I could get away with not using it, I wouldn't. And it helped my jiu-jitsu so much, because I become more reliant on my ability rather than just my strength and athleticism. So I do stress to people a lot, be careful. Strength and athleticism is a bonus, but it's also a detriment to your true progression. It can help you a lot in the short term, but it'll also hinder you a lot. So I always think about that. When you first start, if you're stronger, it's going to be a bonus, 30%. But that 30% of a bonus is probably going to limit you to 500% more progression in your technical ability if you didn't rely on that. So do keep that in mind. So I would try and change my strength and conditioning to suit the competition if I couldn't get training partners. Now, I understand how a lot of this is going to be unrealistic for you guys, because you don't have that kind of, you don't have access to these type of training partners and stuff like that. But if you could, that would be the best way to prepare for competition, in my opinion. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know what you think. If you liked it, please like and share. If you have any other questions about these things that you didn't agree with, please comment and I will reply to you guys. And if you would like to see something spoken about in the future, please write what you would like to hear me speak about. I would love to hear that. Otherwise, if you did enjoy this, make sure you go to kitdaletraining.com, check out all of my other videos, and I would advise you getting the Art of Learning Jiu-Jitsu Volume 1 and 2. That's my two bestsellers. We just sold 10,000 at the moment. And the feedback's been great. You can see it on the page, and it goes into explaining how I got my black belt in 10 years and the science behind why that happened, and how you can change your training to get the same results, if not better. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So, hi to your mum for me.